Tyrone Gold Rush 10K. Finished first overall in 39:51. It wasn't a bad time, I guess, for me. Not my best, not my worst. They had a new course this year. It was a little bit hilly. Came out to be 450 feet of gain and loss for the 10K, so relatively significant. You know, when you got 800 feet in a 10K, you know, change, even though it's only 450 up, it's still pretty significant, especially in the middle of March where it gets a little bit cold. I don't even know if it hit 40 this morning. I think it was only like 37, 38 when I pulled in. It's 48 now, but it's like 2 hours after we started. It was an 8 o'clock race, so a little bit early for a March race as well. But I've done the 5K a few times, won that. I think I won the 10K once, probably like 8 years ago, 7 years ago. I don't know how long it's been. I didn't really look beforehand. But I always try to do this race because they're nice people and always have a good time. Plus, it's a decent crowd. Today I wanted to do the 10K because I've only really been doing 5Ks. I think I got like 1 4-miler in, like race-wise, in the last like probably 4 months. So I got to start ramping up a little bit, testing my body. So that's why I wanted to do the 10K. And I started hill training more this week. So I want to see how my body held up to some actual like race day antics, I guess is what you want to call it. Was a little tired this morning. Probably got about 3-ish hours of sleep last night. I went and saw the Clarks and Aces in Johnstown, and I just couldn't fall asleep. So I didn't get home till like midnight, and I had to get up at 5:50. So by the time I actually got to sleep, and then I just rolled around a little bit, I only got like I said, 3 hours. So I wasn't really rested per se. My legs felt good. I felt good overall. I wasn't really foggy, but I also wasn't geared up, like in a good mental state where I was, you know, really excited to run. Probably because of the weather on the way up. It was just kind of like downy. I want to call it like a downy weather type thing. Just because like you could tell it was cold out still, and I didn't fully wake up. So I was just like, whatever. We're just gonna race. I was really expecting not to win today. I thought my buddy AJ was coming. I figured there was going to be some other younger kids there that were just going to like beat me. So I wasn't like in a mental state where I was going, you know, hoping to win or like do really good. I just wanted to more or less test myself today in the 10K a little bit, just to see how my body held up. Because I think this would give me like 51 for the week with like 6,000 feet of gain. So anyway, I felt good. They had 2 different kinds of bibs because you know, they had the 5K as well today. Everybody starts together, so I sort of knew who my competition was when we started. There was 1 or 2 people I didn't see, but I didn't really warm up again, as tradition seems to be taking place. But there was a gaggle of 5Kers that just like took the hell off and just like dropped the hammer right away, and I was just like, yep, just let them go and do their thing. I had no inkling to even try to keep up or push the pace or do anything with them. I just wanted to run my own race today. I was hoping for like probably low 6s. I think I ended up with like mid 6s. I don't know what the exact overall pace would be, but I don't know. Well, I guess I was like 6:16 overall pace, but we'll say the middle section I was definitely in like the 6:40, 6:50 probably range. But anyway, the first like mile or so, like I just watched the 5K people just like do their thing, because the split's about 2 miles. I want to say like 1.9 is where the 10K veers to the right and the 5K veers to the left. We actually finish the same way, but we have to go out and do like an out and back before we come back to where we just split. There is a hill. Well, it's pretty much uphill for the 10K for the first 4.5 miles. I think it's about where the turnaround was. I want to call it 4.5. So we got a steady incline, like for the first 1.5 miles. Well, I guess there is one little dip where we split. Like that's the only like downhill part for like maybe 1/10. But out of like 4.5 miles, 4.4 uphill. At the split, I had about 120, I think, feet of gain. By the time we hit the turnaround, it was 450. So when we veered off, it was an extra 300 plus feet of gain, and 1.7, I think, is what it was, miles, which I really wasn't expecting. It's new course this year because there's like construction going on where they normally have the 10K go through this like park, and I wasn't really geared up for a huge hill. I just figured there might be a little bit of elevation change, you know, maybe like another 50 to 100 feet, but I wasn't expecting another 300. So like mentally I just wasn't prepared for that, nor, like I said, when I say geared up, like I didn't like prep my muscles or get in that mindset like, all right, it's time to attack some hills. So I just didn't really have my body ready to tackle the hills at all. Not that it was a huge hill, it was more steady, but there was like 2 spots that had like false tops, I guess, or false positives or whatever you want to call them, because you just couldn't see over top of them. But for the vast majority of it, you could see what was ahead of you. There was a few vehicles on the course. It's not a completely closed course, and on the way back there was definitely a lot more traffic and people in the way. And the one real steep part, like where it becomes like a false positive that you can't see over because it was steep right before that, I did walk for like 5 seconds. I want to say 3 to 7 seconds at the most, just to catch my breath, because I didn't know what was over that next hump. But here it was actually like the turnaround, so I really didn't need to walk that. But I just figured at that point my legs started to burn, and I didn't know exactly where that turnaround would be, even though I knew it should only be like another 1/10 to 2/10 past like where I could see over top at the most. But I think that was a smart move right there. I did look back and there was nobody close to me. I didn't look back at all until then. I just didn't want to get that mental game played with myself. Whereas if somebody was actually on my ass, I didn't want to get that like a shot of adrenaline and burn myself out trying to stay ahead. So that's why I only looked at that part while I walked, just to make sure if I was going to walk for a couple of seconds, I wasn't going to get overtaken. And then at the turnaround, I had 20 to 25 seconds ahead of second place. So once I knew that, with like 2.2 to go, or whatever it was, 2.5. Oh shit, wait. Yeah, so we were about like 4.5, 4.6, and we ended up with actually 6.4 miles, so like 2.6 range left in the race. I was pretty confident because once we started going, I knew once we were going to go downhill for that next like mile and a half, 1.7 miles, I was going to be able to turn it on and recover and just take control from there. But backtrack a little bit. At like first mile, I'm like watching people like ahead of me, those 5Kers like play out. The two 10Kers that I knew were in the 10K. I did pass them up probably about a half mile in or so, or a 0.75 in that range. One was younger, I think one was an older guy. So I was confident if I was passing them already, I was going to be able to maintain it, but I wasn't sure. There was one guy in a gray shirt. I didn't know what race he was in until we split. So the first 2 miles, I wasn't sure about him. And the way he looked ahead of me, and he had probably 30 seconds on me, because you could see like pretty far ahead. You could see a couple tenths ahead. And I was like, well, if he's in a 10K, you have no shot at this the way he looks, unless he fades real bad, which I didn't think he was going to. So I was just thinking then, if he's in the 10K, then you're just going to hang back and save some energy so you can run later in the day. But I did maintain. This was like by the school too. I could see him still by the Tyrone high school or middle school, whatever it is. He still had that like 30-second lead on me. Because like I said, the 5Kers were just blowing shit out of the water. I think the winner was 15.5-minute 5K. So 2 minutes like ahead of what I could do easily. So that's why I said like the 5Kers were just, you know, blasting ass and jetting out. And I had no business even trying to hang with them. Glad I didn't try to do that, because I would have burned up. But I was watching that guy in the gray shirt because I wasn't sure what he was going to do or what he was in. I was just hoping that he was just in the 5K, since I was in the, that would make me in the lead of the 10K at the time. And if I was in the lead, I was confident I could maintain it enough where I could finish first in the end, even though it was still only like 1.5 miles to 2 miles in. So then when we got to that 2 mile where we split, or 1.9, whatever you want to call it, I looked up the road real quick. I didn't see him right away, the gray shirt guy, but there was a quick little curve. So once I got around that quick little curve and I didn't see him on like the straight stretch, I was like, all right. I was like, so he turned for the 5K, he's in the 5K, so that means as long as you don't do nothing stupid, you could win the 10K. So then like my strategy just went, like, I don't want to say maintain, because when I say maintain, a lot of the times it's more position, but I just wanted to maintain pace today and not blow up, at least till we get to the turnaround and figure out people behind me position wise, and then I would go from there. And with it being a hill, for what the guy in the parking lot told me, I was like, all right, I should be able to handle this, being a strong hill runner. But as we were heading out, I did ask a couple volunteers, because I wasn't sure. It was like, do we stay straight or do we turn? And they kept saying straight, and I'm like, Jesus. Because I mean, in 300 feet in like 1.7 miles on a road race is a little bit taxing. If it's a trail race, that's nothing. But a road race is a little bit different, where you're running a little bit harder. Your heart rate's a little bit harder or higher. And it's just a different element of road and trail, like elevation wise. But again, being a hill, I felt confident. Trying to think what else. But I just wasn't sure what was going on behind me, because I didn't want to look back. So then again, once the turnaround, I had like that 20 to 25 second lead. Then probably had another 10 from third. I just took off. Well, actually, I took off as soon as we turned around. I did grab a quick water at the turnaround, just a quick gulp. I was kind of wondering that too, because one water stop was at like a mile or 1.2 range. And then we didn't have that for the 10K until that 4.5. And I was like, man, I am a little bit thirsty today. Would like a little bit of water. Wonder if we're gonna have one. And it happened to be at the turnaround. Thank goodness. But that was like the only two for us for the race. So I did take advantage of that, and I'm thankful I did, because it did help. But then after I did that, I went around the cones. I just took off down the hill. I think at one point I looked at my watch. I saw 5:10. So I don't know how long I was doing like a 5:10, or if it was that was the most I was doing, or if I got a little bit lower, maybe broke into the fours. I don't know. I didn't get to upload yet to look. But I was definitely flying on the downhill, using all that free speed to try to gap as much from the people behind me. Yeah, just for the next mile or so, just trying to put on a nice little gap. So I didn't have to worry about it once we flattened out, because that's what I was worried about. I was burning up on the hill, recovered, but flying on the downhill, so I didn't know what was going to happen on the flats. I did move around some people around the 5K once we did meet up, but I guess a little bit before that, as I was heading back, I did switch sides a couple of times with it, depending on the groups of the 10K. Some were on the left, some were on the right hand side coming back, but there was also a couple vehicles. It was like, seemed like it was only trucks. It seemed like there was like a dozen trucks after the turnaround, like on the course. Thankfully I didn't have to step off or do anything, or they didn't ruin my cadence at all, so I'm thankful for that. But once we met up with the 5K, it was pretty much the same thing. After the 5K, like 10K split, where we meet back up, there is a little bit of another dip, because we're running steadily down, but then there's like a dip. Loop around to the left, then it's a nice little straight stretch real quick. That's when I took another glance back just to see if anybody was catching me. I know there was a guy in a black shirt, the older guy, and then a young kid was in like a gray shirt with teal shorts. He had a long sleeve shirt. He wasn't the guy that I was worried about in the short sleeve gray shirt. I know that's a lot of information to process in a recap for a 10K, but whatever. So there was like two straight stretches that I did glance back a couple times just to make sure nobody was creeping up from behind, because I did pull back a little bit once we did flatten out, just because I was worried about burning up. And if I had that 25-second lead at the turn and I put on a nice gap, at least I thought I put on a nice gap from the pace that I was taking, I felt like I didn't need to go red line to the finish, because I wasn't going for time. So when I looked back and I didn't see nobody close, I was a little bit more relieved. But again, I did look back a couple of times just to make sure I didn't miss anybody or nobody was creeping. But I was still in the sixes. It's not like I went down from like a 7:30 pace. I was still in like the mid to low sixes to finish the race. But whatever. Then we just looped around this like underpass bridge type thing, came into the finish by the armory, because that's what they call the building that we use. I took it home. I probably did dress a little bit warm. I had my calf sleeves on. I had my compression shorts with shorts over top, because again, it was like 37, 38 degrees when I pulled in. I did wear a long sleeve shirt, had my neck gaiter, and I wore a visor beanie. I took my leg mitts. So I did get really hot. That's probably also why I had a hard time on the hill, because with like my heart rate going up, my body just got too overheated as well. So the hills, I would say, killed me a lot more than they probably should have. I ended up putting my leg mitts in my pocket. I pulled my gaiter on top of my beanie. And then maybe 5 miles or something in, I actually pulled the shirt over my head, just because I couldn't take it anymore. My chest and stuff was just way too hot. I was, like I said, I was burning up. Even going downhill, I just needed to cool myself off a little bit. My shirt was just making me too warm. I probably rolled my sleeves up probably a mile in. So that's when I really started to get warm. I was going to take my leg mitts off earlier than probably like 2 or 3 miles, but my hands weren't exactly warm yet. Like, my body was warm, but it wasn't warm enough like where it went to my hands yet. So I did have to wait for that to kick in, and once it did, it really did. Whatever. I don't know if the shoes played a factor today, because I wasn't really like balls to the wall redlining. But I would say they probably did, because my legs still feel good right now. Other than that, that's about it. I don't know, it's just a fun event. I'm glad the weather was actually decent, even though I say it was cold. There's some years where it's been frosty and you can see your breath in the air. I think even one year is like snow and icy. So this year is actually like a dry course, even though the course for the 10K was a little bit harder. That's about it. Yeah, I think we'll just end it there. I'm glad I went. I got a cool award. Share that real quick. This was around it as well. So something nice. Alright, we're just going to end it at that for now.